Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Anderson. I'm Chief Sales Officer and Senior Vice President at Choose Chicago, the Chicago Convention and Tourism Bureau. Welcome to today's session, Technology's Impact on the Future of Events. Will you be ready? It is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. Dan Berger is the founder and CEO of the Washington, D.C.-based event planning software company, Social Tables. Please welcome Don.
Thank you very much. I want to start off by just answering the question for the session, and the answer is yes, you will be. So we can all exhale together. Everybody breathe in. We will be ready. Before we do anything, I want to make sure that everybody meets everybody at their table, and I love the fact we're at tables. For those in the back, this will be a pretty interactive session, so if you want to join a table to take part in the discussion, please feel free to do so now. Or if you're in a table that only has one or two people, you might want to join a bigger table. Feel free to do that. Don't be embarrassed to get up and shuffle things around. That's the nature of meetings these days. I want to start off by just getting everybody to meet each other at the table. So if you don't mind, let's take 2 minutes. We'll do introductions around the table. Where are you from? What do you do? Why are you here? Have fun.
Please be very gentle because I'm not even going to use the table. Thank you so much.
All right, let's wrap up those conversations. About 30 more seconds, please. Exchange business cards, tweet at each other. All right, very good. Thank you very much. I like to remind ourselves that that's what really conferences are all about. I can stand here and babble all day long, but you all came here to meet each other. So we'll have more opportunities to learn from each other because that's where the best learning comes from. I want to quickly start with an agreement. You know, we're all in the meetings industry, and we all live and die by contract. So I'd like to come to a contract with you all, and I give props to Jeff Hurt, who taught me this a few sessions ago. And it's the audience presenter agreement, and it's essentially a couple things. The first one is you can ask me questions at any time. I don't know where the mic was left, but we'll find that when we need it. But please feel free to ask me questions anytime. Raise your hand. If I don't respond, it's because I don't see you, so move them violently. And you'll be seeing my emails at the top right. I apologize. I don't know how to. Google removed that ability to turn it off, so don't let that distract you. So unprofessional. Second, engage me or the conference on Twitter. The hashtag is PCMACL, PCMA Convening Leaders. And my hashtag is, my name on Twitter is Dan Berger. It's spelled Dan, pronounced Don. It's because it's an Israeli name. Take as many photos as you want, share it with the world. If you want the presentation at the end, I'll be glad to send it to you afterwards. And you're free to leave at any time. So if at any point this session it comes in the way of doing something else, you can walk out those doors and there will be absolutely no ill will. I understand that your time is valuable and I want to make sure you maximize it. So please feel free to get up. Don't be embarrassed. If you agree with that, can I get a thumbs up? Thumbs up, everybody? Cool? That is excellent. That is a virtual signature. I just saw I screwed up the animation on this, but let me just quickly tell you about myself, just so you know why I'm qualified to deliver this session. I think it's important for me to establish credibility with you all early on. So first of all, I'm a planner. I've been a planner since I was in the late 90s. I worked for a congressman for 4 years. I did meetings and association events. I ran an association with 15,000 members, much like you all do. So I've been a planner most of my professional career. I'm a participant, not only because I go to conferences as an attendee, but also I really participate in this industry. I sit on the Philadelphia Convention and Visitor Bureau Customer Advisory Board. I'm the only vendor out of 15 planners. And I sit on the Apex Committee, which is the Convention Industry Council's Standards Committee. So I participate in this industry. I'm a supplier. I run a event planning software company called Social Tables. And finally, I'm a believer. I really believe in the power of meetings and events to drive value to everybody attending, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's attendee, whether it's a host city, what have you. I really believe in this industry, and that's why I'm here today. And this belief is really manifested in this concept we have at Social Tables, which is that we believe in a world where people get together to achieve great things. And that idea is pretty simple, right? We help you get together so that your attendees, your stakeholders, your sponsors can achieve great things. And we usually forget this. So anytime I like to ground myself and remind myself what the vision is, and that's a world where we have effective meetings. I took the LOs, the learning objectives that were in the session that I came up with my team and kind of exploded them. So I want to break them down very simply. We'll have 4 learning objectives for this session. The first one is we're going to review technology's impact to date. And of course, we can say there's no more fax machines or registrations are done electronically, but it's much deeper than that. And we'll get a chance to hear from all of you. Second, I'll help you figure out what technology to use. A lot of folks stand up on stage or in sessions and they say, use this for that and use this for this. And I don't think it's very effective because you can't prescribe a solution without understanding the problem. And I'll help you all break down the planning process that you have internally and then identify the exact solutions that might be good for you. And then we'll see what's up ahead. So we'll go over 4 really mega trends to see what's up ahead and see how they can affect the industry. And finally, I'll help you, each person, prepare for the future by talking about how you can future-proof your career to make sure you continue to advance in whatever you want to do, whether it's you want to keep being a coordinator or you want to be the CEO one day. Sound good? Awesome. All right, so first let's open up with an open discussion, group discussion, please. We'll have 2 minutes to do this. How has technology impacted your job over the last decade? Turn to your neighbor and start discussing.
Flipping my chair back and forth. Job security. Yeah. We're the only ones that know how to run it. So that's good. That is good. They don't even know we have it.
It's made our jobs easier. But we've also had to take on a lot more responsibilities because we've made processes easier and faster.
This is the Miku? Oh, I want to look at the Kobe thing too.
Kobe was closer to us though, not
Yeah.
You're invited to my party just so you know.
All right, let's do 30 more seconds.
When is it?
The elite, the day before. We get to dress up in everything. Baby Shark, cute ones. Surprising. So I was there.
50 Shades.
It's like made of crystal.
All right, let's bring back the conversation.
I should have bought it when I saw it.
I love all of the discussion. I'm hearing all the murmuring. This is awesome. Any volunteer that wants to share something I was told is shared in the table. You can also volunteer a teammate. It's always good to stand in the middle because the people around you feel forced to respond.
By the way, I hate public speaking, so I get a little nervous here, but I was just bringing up, for my company, we started using a mobile app for our meeting, and when our meeting was done, this was back in November, we had 6 boxes of programs left over. And so I calculated how much we'd spent per book. It was $33 per book to make. This book had the agenda, who's attending, the letter from our president, I mean, all the details. And I calculated we threw $4,000 of the $12,000 that we spent to create this book away. And now, after bringing this up, we are no longer creating this book, which is basically out to date by the time you go to print. So that's our big change this year.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. One more. Here you go.
We had a general theme, but it was the basically the RFP process, the research process, and then the communication process in general. So, you know, the ways of picking up the phone and having a conversation is now email or text or all digital process through the RFP. The turnaround times are much quicker. So technology has absolutely driven that.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone that's burning that somebody wants to share? Okay, so I'm willing to bet that the general themes that everybody discussed fall under 5 categories, and I want to go quickly go over them right now. The first one is this idea of connectivity, and connectivity leads to multitasking. So you know the old adage, just people say there are only 24 hours in the day. That's actually not true. Today, depends how you calculate it, but there are over 30 hours in the day to account for all the multitasking that takes place. So for example, you can be watching TV and doing work, when usually those 2 activities were separate. You could be listening to music while you're biking to work, where those 2 activities used to be different. So there are actually more hours in the day, and generally speaking, the agreement is on about 35 hours a day today. So multitasking has, quite honestly, created more time, but also created more pressure. This need to always be on and to always be accessible. So every single theme I'll talk about will have the pros and cons. Second, this information access, and you touched on it, sir. And this idea that information is available to everybody. This is referred to as information symmetry. In our industry, there was for a very long time this idea of information asymmetry, when one party knew more about the other, and that's always leads to kind of unfair negotiations. Well, now you can go online and get a lot of information, and that information is readily available. So we have information symmetry. This actually happened a lot during with the stock market, when you were actually able to find out information about companies you were investing in rather quickly. So information access, and that means for us as planners or suppliers that there's more competition, and our target consumer, our target participant, our prospect, is doing more research and understands the competition that we're facing on our own. And then there's this idea of automation, or as some people like to call it, augmentation. And automation has really done a lot of things to make our lives easier. And the automation really falls into 3 categories. The first category of automation was to replace dull or dirty work. The second category of automation that came a little later was just to make us work faster. And then finally, the third chapter of automation, I screwed up. It was dangerous and dirty work. Next to it was replacing dull work. And then the third category of automation is really replacing decision making. And we're very far from that. But that's kind of the generation of automation as we go through them. Now, automation has helped us in a lot of ways because it's helped us become more strategic in our jobs. So for example, in the new Social Tables office, we don't have a receptionist. We have a check-in experience akin to one at a hotel, to automate that process and make the office manager be a little more strategic in his or her job. And then finally, collaboration. This idea that we all work together to achieve a certain result. We can now access documents, work on the same thing, read off the same music sheet. This wasn't possible a few years ago. So those are the 5 areas that technology has really impacted us. And I think it's just important to understand and reflect over that, and not just kind of categorically say it's changed one thing or another. I added this one last minute. It's speed. And this idea that everything is available in real time. Feedback is a perfect example of this. We're now getting surveys back, and we can change what we did the day before. And the same is true for how we perform at work. This idea of annual performance reviews, that happens quarterly or maybe even more often. There's this idea of continuous performance evaluation. This is just in this constant quest to get better as human beings, which I think is an innate desire in everybody, not just millennials. So I hope that kind of helps you reflect on the last 5-10 years of how your job has changed. And I'd like it for you to turn around to your neighbor and talk about how do you want to integrate technology into your process? If you have an idea, and if you don't, that's okay too. So how would you like to integrate technology into your planning process? Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's integrating technology in the process of your work. So what do you want your app to be? Our app to be? The function guide creator. That you just put your information into the app, format a function guide for you, and then we link it to every hotel system. So there's no manual input on either side. They just import the information into their system. And it's done.
Yeah,
Then
they can try to do that.
They can create videos. They don't have us.
What they don't have is
That's dumb. Oh, what?
because they all use different operating systems.
Right.
So they want something that they can, like press upload and all the information goes in.
So we just create a script that formats our information into whatever import they need.
Like that.
Or a writer. Well, maybe we need like an app writer.
I know an app writer.
Get on it.
How would you like to integrate technology in ways that you haven't? Let's try to focus on, let's listen to that right? And see what you want to change.
South by Southwest.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. Just a quick tip to focus on problems, not on solutions.
I wish there was a way for us to do the function guide.
Yeah.
Like have it all in
One change.
yeah. I wish it was the same for the website too.
Yeah.
All right, another 60 seconds. There's some really good discussions happening. I want to keep at it.
If he comes in here and I don't even know what the question was.
I really hope he's
If it is, they can still
All right.
They don't know what
Just want to thank everybody again for their participation. I think it's so important that we talk amongst each other. Any volunteers that want to share what they discussed? I was hoping you wouldn't do that. This was a great discussion. No, go ahead.
Oh, no, mine's totally different.
Oh, is it? Okay, then can you pass the mic over to Nick when you're done? Awesome.
Okay, so we were talking about how in an office space you have a team of meeting planners here, and sometimes just the integration, the collaboration it's hard to streamline that information back and forth, and sometimes it gets lost. Working in Excel because everybody has Excel. Why not? And just how do we do that? How do we move it forward? And we're talking, and the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, I just went to the session downstairs in one of the learning lounges, and we talked about Slack. And it's a project management tool, piece of software that is just, it takes everything and puts it all into a collaborative space. And I think by minimizing the one-on-one discussion and bringing the whole team into that collaborative digital space, you're able to then disseminate the information either to the team, individually, it puts it out there, and then like the question, what if something happens to the meeting planner? She up and quits, he gets hit by a bus, something happens. The information's still there, everybody's on the same page, and so looking at that project management software as the applications are being developed now, I think it is a great way to move forward in the technological space, if you will, and integrating everybody cohesively.
Excellent, thank you. So for those who don't know, Slack is a messaging platform. Imagine it's like Facebook Messenger for your entire organization, and you can have different topics or they call it channels to have discussion. And if we have time, I can show it to you because we use it at our company. Go ahead, Nick.
So that was actually the solution to the problem that we had. We were talking about streamlining information in a hotel and on the meeting planning side as well.
Can you tell everybody what you do?
So I work for the Las Vegas CVA, but in the past I've been on property in hotels before, and there's been a million times where, not myself of course, but someone on our team sold something in a contract that the CSM was like, you can't sell it, that's not gonna work. So we were just saying, having that information streamlined so that everyone's talking and communicating, the salesperson's talking to the food and beverage director, and they're talking to the audiovisual team, and they're talking to their CSM, which they should be already doing, but just having that information in one space where everyone knows what's going on.
Right.
So
cool. Thanks, Nick.
And it sounds like that's a solution for us. So.
Excellent. One more. This table is getting a gold star. Let's also say your name and what you do, please.
I'm Megan Martin. I'm a meeting planner for National Conference of State Legislatures. And we were talking about having integrated technology with all of our vendors. So with any annual conference, you have your AV vendor, your food and beverage contact, your convention center contact, maybe a couple of host hotels or hotel blocks. So a way that I could put my specs out there so that I'm not sending each individual vendor the specs. It's one space that everyone can go in there, and so the food and beverage people can see, what AV is going in the room. The setup people can see, sort of a big picture, and all of our vendors and team are on the same page. When we go through and they're not always waiting on information from someone else, you can go and look at it in real time all the time and not just waiting on one person's information.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. Can we get a round of applause for all the people who contributed to this content? All right, very good. So here's what I'm going to do. There is no way in heck that I can tell you what technology to use because I know nothing about the meetings that you plan. Instead, I'd like to provide you with a framework that I think would help you at least assess your situation and know where you need the most help. So bear with me, this is something new. I've never done this before, and I hope you find it useful. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in grad school, we had like this end of the year. Anybody like do a Follies at the end of their school year, or like you record some funny videos or whatever. So we did a video about a framework, and it was a musical. And it went like, it was two confused students sitting around, and one didn't know what to do, and the other one goes, I have an idea. And then we start singing, and it ends by me singing, a framework. So this idea that a framework is a fix for everything always makes me laugh. But I'm going to share a framework with you, and it's a 4-step framework. And it's essentially a framework to help you think about your process, explode it, and then find ways to experiment inside of it. So let's take a look. So first I'm going to be review your meeting planning process. Essentially, it's a whiteboard exercise of getting all your process, all the different steps in your process down. And this is really important to do on your own. And I can't tell you because, for example, if you have a special event and there's an auction, then you have an auction. But 99% of events have an auction. If it's an internal event, then you have to worry about marketing. So there's just many, many different reasons why I can't give you the process since I don't know your process. The second one is choose an area that you want to augment with technology. Let's find a spot in this process and try to fix it with technology. And then we'll go up with a short list, and I'll share with you how to vet that short list. What questions you should be asking people like me, the suppliers, and then finally, we'll decide and test. So, and by the way, we'll run through this. I'll run this exercise together with you through one of the processes that we use at Social Tables, because we're planning our user conference at the end of the year. So we're dog fooding essentially. We're eating our own dog food. So review your meeting planning process. So first step is list every step in your planning process. And like I said, it can be very different. We did it at Social Tables, and it starts out with identify business need, budget, research, solicit. That's my handwriting, by the way. Solicit, evaluate, decide, create agenda, create attendee list, manage sponsors. It goes on and on. So just brain dump the entire process on a whiteboard. Make sure that each step starts with a verb. That's really important. So it's not project manage, it's manage the project. And that's just any process has to have an action in it. Third is find a way to weight the difficulty of this process. And I came up with 3 different criteria. For me, it's time, time consumption, the cost, and the dullness. How boring is it? Should a machine be doing this instead of me? And then you can create a kind of a weighted scorecard where you can give a score to each one of these things. So, for example, it's 5 on time, 2 on cost, and 3 on dullness. And then we force rank this, as you'll see in a second, in order to see where we have the most need, and then we can start diving into potential solutions available on the market. Because trust me, there are many solutions on the market. Some categories have as many as 200 different providers. So you have to first analyze where you need the most help. All right, so that's step 1, review your meeting planning process. Step 2 is we gotta get our priorities straight. How do we do that? We force rank all the steps we just did. So if, for example, soliciting takes me the longest amount of time and it's the most boring and most painstaking, most costly, then it's gonna be at the top. Identify a software category. Now, you're not gonna find a software category called solicitation, but you can find the software category that it may fall under, like a supplier network or an RFP tool or whatnot. So find the software category. It's usually a couple of Google searches should get you there. Make a list of the requirements and the results that you want. So this is really important because if you're going to be able to differentiate all the different options that are there, you have to know what world you envision existing. So for example, I heard the word collaboration a lot. I heard the word accountability or reporting. These are all different features and benefits that are important to you. They may not be important for other people. So come up with those things that are important to you. And then you're going to create your product shortlist. And how do you do that? You're probably thinking, well, first of all, there's an incredible bevy of options outside here at Tech Central. And believe it or not, every single conference these days has one of these innovation centers. So there's many ways you can get it. You can subscribe to Corbin's newsletter, which is incredible because it's got all the latest technology in it. And there's other people like Corbin who have made available their knowledge with the world. So you can find a free guide online. You can attend a conference's tech showcase or innovation zone. You can ask your network and even ask your vendors. Say, hey, I'm looking for something that does this. And your vendors, your trusted partners, should hopefully give you the right answer. And if they don't, or they don't know, then you might want to consider your vendors. And then finally, you can visit sites like Event Manager Blog or many other blogs that are out there. Social Tables blog has a lot of information, so you can go ahead and learn about these tools. And then we're going to vet our shortlist. And again, I'm seeing a lot of note-taking. I'm seeing a lot of photos. That's awesome. We're going to do this together in a second. So we're going to vet our shortlist. I'm going to go to my monitor so I can stop turning around. We're going to vet our shortlist. And how do we do that? So here are some questions that you might want to ask. Either they're going to give you 5 categories that you should look into when selecting a vendor, and some questions you should be asking in order to know whether it's the right vendor or not. So first of all, I think it is absolutely critical to understand the business model of the people you work with. One of the questions I ask software providers all the time, the salespeople, say, how do you make your money? So some of them make it off of a base salary. Some make it off commission. Now, if it's commission, do the customer service people get commission? Do the people who implement the solution get commission? So in other words, if they're charging me for setup like $1,000, $2,000, are they getting commission for that setup? That's an important question, because if they're not, I can then negotiate against the setup, because a salesperson doesn't care about the value of the setup cost. So business model is really important. So how does your company make money? Is it an annual license? Is it a set cost, etc.? Is there a limit on users? Is there a limit on usage? Can I only have one event? Can it have 10,000 people? Can I have 10,000 events with 1,000 people? Doesn't matter, but how do you meter my usage? Is there a trial version? So really great software, in my opinion, lets you try it out for free. If you go to socials.com, you can try it out for free right now for 30 days. Many other providers the same exact way. Some even have a freemium version. Flexibility. How flexible is the platform you're purchasing? Well, the first question you want to ask is, do you have a mobile version? Now, a lot of folks will say, sure, we'll work on the mobile. And that just means that you can load up their website in the browser on your mobile device. That's not a mobile version. A mobile version thinks about the context in which the software is being used. So for example, if you think about Airbnb, if you're using your computer, you have the full experience to manage your space if you're renting out a place on Airbnb. If you're on the iPad, it's geared towards discovery. As you go through the app, you start discovering spaces, because the tablet is an experience where you have on a couch or you're in a leisure activity. So the experience on the iPad is very different. If you're on a mobile phone, you're just trying to quickly respond to a message. You're quickly trying to block out a time. So it's a very different contextual. It's a very different experience depending on the context of the use of the feature. So a mobile version is really important. It means that they thought about it. And the deeper question is, do you have a mobile version or a native application? So in other words, were you built for the iPad, or were you just built for anything and it just happens to work on an iPad? Does it have collaboration features? So in other words, can I share what I'm doing with other people? Can they see what I'm doing in real time? Microsoft Office, I might be editing an Excel spreadsheet, nobody sees it, and before you know it, there's V20 being uploaded to your inbox. The support. How supported is the solution? What kind of training resources do you have? Are they a person or are they automated? Are the training assets free, like videos and a knowledge base? What kind of customer support do you offer? Many companies charge for customer support, which I don't accept, and I'll never do business with anybody who charges me for picking up a phone to ask a question. What kind of community do you have? Can I go to the community to ask questions? If you use Salesforce has a massive community, and you can go and get to know other users. Where can I find your availability metrics? In other words, is the software always up? Is it delivered in the same exact speed to China as it is to New York? If that's important for you, that's a question you should be asking. Do you subscribe to what's called the triple nines, the 99.9% availability? So in other words, only 0.1% of the time is the software down. Does it play nice with others? So we talked about this a little bit, this integration. Megan talked about this need for a big platform. Do you have an API, an application programming interface, so that my developers can build off of your program? How much coverage does the API have? If it's got an API that has very little coverage, it means you can only do one or two things. The key is for the API to be doing everything else, so that I can program my way into your software without actually using the software. The API is essentially the way that different pieces of software talk to each other behind the scenes. Do you support any integrations? The reason why Slack has blown up in the entire community, has about millions of active users a day, is because it integrates into all the systems you currently use. And integrations are really key, because you can just say, when this happens, do that. When that happens, do this. And then it seamlessly flows together, and you can have a best-of-breed solution, which is what you want. So you can pick a best-of-breed solution for every single thing and create your own platform. Are these integrations automatic or manual? Does it happen like that, or do I have to press a button? And if they happen, are they happening one way? In other words, the attendee list is being updated in one software, and when I'm making changes here, it's not being updated over there. That's synchronous versus asynchronous information. I want to make sure it's synchronous. Can I use an automation service? There's automation services. These are two that you might want to jot down, called Zapier and If This Then That. You can go online and you can actually make two pieces of technology talk to each other. So when I have a new registrant, send me an email. When this guest arrived, send me a text. When somebody downloads this ebook, call them. So you can have these kind of, you can have literally if this then that statements in the cloud. And then finally, referrals. Ask for customer referrals, case studies, and testimonials. And you can never get enough of those because really great companies should have this available to them. So that's my list of questions you should ask. Perfect timing as I'm completely flooding your brain with information and questions to ask. We're going to move on to the next slide. But I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I ask my vendors before before I move on. The one thing I want to say is you can also negotiate in your contracts what our European friends call a happy clause, which means you can cancel at any time or 30 days or whatever. So make sure you kind of try to negotiate those things, because some software is really expensive, so you should get your money back if you're not happy. Okay, next step, the fourth and final step, decide. But before you decide, socialize your ideas with stakeholders and influencers to get buy-in. This is like any change management process. It's important to get people on board with your mission. Start small and frame it as an experiment. Hey, Kevin, I have a really crazy idea. Let's use digital registration for our next event. I know it might not work, but let's give it a shot. Let's just try it out for the board meeting with 20 people. So start small, experiment, position an experiment. And one of the things I love to say is that high performers, we're all high performers, we're all really great in our industry, that's why I became the PCMA. High performers don't fail, they learn. So with that in mind, frame it as an experiment, you'll learn and you'll get better. Acknowledge that you might have some setbacks and come back to it. You might even have to start all over. But trying out these in one or two conferences or one or two meetings is a great way to get going. Okay, so now I've told you all this information. I want to give you a real life example of how you can apply this framework to your needs. But there was a question right over here, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic so you can ask a question.
I was asking to go back one slide.
Oh, yes. There you go. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about a real life example. But go back a slide. You can have a presentation. I'll send you the presentation if you'd like. I'm going to tweet it out. It's going to be available online. Everything is going to be available online. Or if you give me a card, I can send it to you via email in 10 minutes. Oh, after the session. 10 minutes after the session. Hold on, I'm going to go send it to you right now. I'm just kidding. All right. All right, so we made the decision. Awesome. Let's see what a real life example looks like. So here is what I just started doing this, and I was like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. But I think it's worth your time to at least understand the process you have internally. So this is only the beginning of the meeting planning process at Social Tables. And it starts with identifying the business need, obviously. And I said, oh, that's not very time consuming since we know why we're doing events. It's not very costly since I'm not doing anything other than just saying we have a business need. And it's not very dull because I really like to identify a business need. So pretty much this does not need a technological solution. If it was only all that easy. Next is budgeting. It takes a lot of time to figure out what our budget's going to be for our event. So I put that at 4. It doesn't cost me a lot because it's just opportunity cost. And it's pretty dull. I don't like talking about budgets. So I rank that a 3. And the way I did it is I just averaged these 3 numbers out. If you want to get really fancy, you can give these weights, and you can say, I care more about dullness than I care about time, and you can do a weighted scorecard. I'm not going to go over that right now. You can Google it. Weighted scorecards are really even more powerful tool. Anyway, I went down this list, and I gave it everything an average score. I then went on and ranked everything. So I realized that selection, internal communication, and space research had the highest scores. Can anybody relate to this? I'm seeing some head nodding. Yeah, because it's probably mostly across the board. People agree that selecting a venue, as we saw in the general session today, the decision to attend is a lot based on the destination. So of course we put a lot of weight on where we go, and we put even more weight on where we actually hold the event. So it does make sense that these are pretty high up here. If you had different criteria, it might look a little different. But anyway, these are the 3 that I found. And then what I did is I went ahead and I chose one of them. So I chose communication internally. So communication internally, I've met thousands of event professionals over the last 4 and change years as I started Social Tables, and pretty much everybody says that internal communication is the biggest problem. So I chose this one right now for us to go over. So the category there is project management. Remember, the step I mentioned is first to identify your problem, right, the communication internally, and then you have to find the potential solution. Project management is the category this would fall under. So what are my requirements when I want to communicate internally? Well, I want to make sure there's no paper, like the lady who saved so much money on programs. I want to make sure it's easy to use so that Bob in accounting and my intern, and second year school intern can both use it at the same time without much training. I want it to be cost effective so I don't have to spend a lot of money. I want it to grow with the organization. So as we have more events, I want to be able to use the same system. And I want it to integrate into our document system, whatever that means. And then I want to be able to manage tasks within my project management system. So I did some research and I found 4 different tools that I think might be good for my needs. They are Trello, ProofHub, Asana, and Microsoft Project. Now I'm not going to go into the details and bore you into each of these things, and I don't think it's useful for me to go over these tools. But the bottom line is I found these tools, and you can go online today and do demos of them. They'll do a GoToMeeting, they'll show it to you, they'll walk you through it. You can find videos on YouTube. You can even try it out yourself. So whittle it down to the 4 things you want to look at, and then and then do the other steps, which I don't need to go over. But basically, vetting your shortlist, which is that big word cloud I threw at you, and deciding and testing. Okay, so with that, I want to try, and I have an experiment I want to try. I'd like for you to turn to your group and make one commitment of something you will do when you get back based on this framework I just shared with you. Silence.
Big nut was missed, and that's the one where
30 more seconds. I'm a Jewish New Yorker. I talk very fast. So channel the inner Jewish New Yorker inside of you.
Excuse me.
All right. This is always the hardest part. So research shows that when we commit to something publicly, we're more likely to do it. Does anybody want to share their commitment with the group? I'm going to give this 2 seconds. I'm seeing some finger. Oh my God, yes.
What do I win?
You might win something. A car.
What we talked about at this table was, what I didn't see up there was, I'll call it program development, content development. Content's king. We know that that's very important. So for me, though that wasn't on your list, but the same process can apply, is how do I apply technology to content development?
That's a really, the only reason it's on my list is I didn't go down all the way to execute my meeting. I ran through about 1/3 of the.
Okay, so it is on your list.
Yeah, I ran out of space in the table. But yes, so program development, content development, agenda creation, all those things, those are definitely, so agenda creation, for example, if you're sick of doing agenda creation, you can just crowdsource it, as an example, like if you're doing a board meeting. If you're doing content development, there's many ways to automate that, and we can talk about it offline, but that's a really interesting one. So absolutely, there's a lot of great things you can do with content development. So I like the commitment, looking at new ways to automate content development. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Round of applause. Round of applause. All right, cool. So I'm going to go over some trends in technology right now. And the goal of this, and I'm super excited about the last slide, because the last slide I'm really pumped about, but I'm going to do this and I'll come back to the last slide. At 15 minutes, it's perfect. So I'm going to talk about 4 technology trends that are going to impact the industry as we know it. And I want to warn you that this is perhaps controversial. One thing I learned during this session in the past, and I've updated it as a result, is that some of my predictions came off a little bit doomsday-like, and I really don't. That's not my intention. So if I come off that way, I apologize, and I've reworded some of the things. So I really welcome your feedback of how I can make this palatable for everybody, because I really want people to listen and get something out of it. So hopefully you give me some feedback after this. So the 4 technology trends we're going to talk about are, number 1, software is eating the world. Number 2, technology-driven networks have arrived. Number 3, the sharing economy is not slowing down. And number 4, technology is seamlessly integrating into our lives. And then with each one of these trends, I'll give you some predictions that I think apply to our industry. So first, software is eating the world. What do I mean by that? I mean that software is pretty much making everything that we knew change. Let me give you an example. Tesla just released a software upgrade that increases its battery life. So in other words, a car downloaded and upgraded itself, and it can now work better. So software is driving hardware. Think about your mobile device. Your mobile device gets a new operating system. Not a single thing changes in the hardware, but it becomes better as a result of software. So, or another example is Netflix has completely wiped out Blockbuster. Amazon completely wiped out Barnes & Noble. These are all software companies. They don't have a lot of assets. Airbnb, slowly changing the hotel industry, software. So the first prediction is that event apps will no longer exist. Event apps are these things you download on your phone. The reason I say that is because in the future, the devices you carry around in your pockets will know exactly where you are, and you have to download an event app in order to know where to go. So this idea of downloading software to your phone will not really exist, just like it's disappeared in the computer. The computer is where you go in the cloud and you go www.gmail.com. That's my software. I'm not downloading Gmail. I'm going to the cloud to get the Gmail. The same thing will happen on your phone, so you won't have to download software to your phone. All events will have a virtual component. So basically, and they talk about this today in the journal session, this idea that we'll have a virtual audience. And imagine for a second a virtual lounge where you can go interact with people who are connected around the world. Conferences such as this one are very cost prohibitive for people abroad. And by having a virtual attendee lounge where there can be holograms or there can be interfaces or telepresence with people around the world can really be great. Salesforce, for example, has used their virtual event to drive attendance. So there's this kind of myth that virtualizing your event will drive down attendance. It actually increases attendance because it gives people the opportunity to experience it before they actually go in person. There will be no cash at events. And basically, I find it hard to believe that I go to some events and there's still, and events for me is everything, right? Like music festivals, cash bars. There'll be no cash events. I'll talk more about that. Group business will be booked mostly online. So imagine software that knows a little bit about your organization, a little bit about your needs, a little bit about your objectives, that can start recommending destinations or spaces for you based on what you're trying to do. Just like Amazon tells you, oh, you've gotten an electric toothbrush, check out this new mouthwash. And then as a result, we'll see a lot of group business being booked online, just like we book transient or leisure. Supplier professionals will become even more knowledgeable and trusted consultants. Right now, there's this idea of just a pass-through, right? Sign this contract, on to the next one. If software is booked online, if events are booked online, then the people we traditionally dealt with will have to provide more than just rates, dates, and space. And the relationships that we have with all of our suppliers will only continue to strengthen because we'll go to them for many more things. There'll be less site visits. So this idea, just like Deborah gave a virtual site visit of this space before we walked out of the general session, site visits there'll be less of them because we'll get a virtual experience of what's happening and we can walk the space in our browser, our web browser on our phone. Coordinating event logistics will be automated. By the way, this doesn't mean site inspections. Site inspections will probably still be around for a long time. Coordinating event logistics will be automated. Imagine a world where our software suggests to us when we should have our annual meeting based on the calendars of every single attendee. Imagine a world where our content is automatically curated based on the LinkedIn profiles of our attendees. That's pretty awesome, and I think it's pretty possible. We just need the will as an industry to get there. And that means really great news for you, right? Because it means that we can focus on being more strategic. One of the things we've learned is that machines lack empathy, decision-making skills, and strategy. And that's where we come in as meeting professionals. And in my next chapter in this, my fourth one, I'll go over how you can focus and hone in on those skills. The industry processes as we know them will be obliterated. So whether it's the RFP process, the BEO process, the meeting planning process, whatever, everything will be flipped on its head, and we'll be doing things very, very differently. How? I don't know. I'd love to pontificate with you over a beer, but just every process, because the true innovation doesn't happen from putting lipstick on a pig, by putting an E in front of an RFP. It doesn't work that way. The true innovation comes from something completely life-changing. We're transitioning from bureaucratic hierarchies to technology-driven networks. So in the olden days, we used to make decisions at the top, and then those decisions would trickle down to the bottom, and then all the peons, us, will execute whatever the decision maker said. Well, nowadays, it's actually the other way around. Us, the people, make suggestions that are heard so loudly they get to the upper echelons of society. Whether it's marriage equality or whether it's hosting in Vancouver, doesn't really matter. The decisions are being made by us, and people are listening, and they're acting on our behalf. So as an example of that, the event business model will change. You know, people might not want to pay $3,000 to go to your conference. They might want to pay in small micropayments for every single session they attend. Who knows? Content will be crowdsourced or auto-generated. So this idea, just like they did the PCMA education conference last year, this idea that we, the people, decide what we want to learn. Who am I, a speaker who doesn't know many of you, to tell you what you should know? You should tell me what you want to know, and we should work together. That should be a collaborative process. Our industry will embrace transparency. Maybe there will be a time when we'll know the exact rates, dates, and space available in different cities in real time. The sharing economy is not slowing down. So if Airbnb and other home sharing communities continue to strengthen, right now we're seeing about 2 to 5% of the housing block in New York City be taken up by Airbnb, where it used to be traditionally hotels. If that's continuing to happen, then what will happen to hotels? Well, I think hotels will become group and luxury boxes only, with home sharing being for transient business, perhaps some corporate travel and leisure. So imagine hotels being completely rebranded for groups that are traveling. Everything planners need will be available in one place. I can go if I need some more riggers, if I need some more porta potties, if I need more security guards, if I need some more volunteers, I can get them through my phone. Economic impact will be measured at CVBs. Economic impact will be the key measure for CVBs. So if home sharing is indeed taking away from the way that CVBs measure their success through room nights, then they really can't measure the success anymore, because only about a third of conference business uses a block. So how do we know CVBs are successful? The key is economic impact, and the really forward-thinking CVBs are moving towards that. And finally, technology is seamlessly integrating into our lives. Attendees can discover, basically, as you know, I read a really funny quote. It said, Internet of Things is essentially taking a product and putting Wi-Fi in it. And that's what it is. Attendees will discover events and sessions that are right for them. Imagine if we didn't have to go through a program, and the program, the app, or whatever we're using will automatically tell us which sessions we should go to. That would be pretty awesome. So discovery will be much more seamless, because our software will know us a little better. Security will continue to be a concern for planners and attendees. When you have so many decision makers in one place like Davos, or you have so many influencers like PCMA, we become a target. And we'll have to continue to fight that as saboteurs try to find ways of infiltrating our communities. On-site logistics will be handled by machines and robots. When you arrive, you walk in, you don't have to talk to anybody. When the room is done, it automatically gets turned down by a Roomba, like the vacuum, or a robot. And drones will be flying overhead to take photos. And speaking of photos, the best photographers will know how to fly, because they'll be operating a drone, not walking around with a camera. And attendees will meet the right people and not exchange business cards. So maybe our watch will connect us on LinkedIn automatically, or whatever different device we use. And technology will be an integrated part of the convention services team's offerings. It's no longer about food and beverage, and if they do AV, why not do a little more? So I think that the CS teams will start offering technology as part of the packages that they sell to us as planners. I think I'm not doing good on time, so I'm going to stop. Yep, I'm actually not going to. I'm going to come back to this, because I really want to share this next slide with you. So I'm seeing a lot of wide-eyed faces. This is really awesome. I hope you're taking it in and learning. The last thing I want to do is help you future-proof your job. And basically, I'll go through 5 different steps that I think can be helpful to you, depending on what you're trying to do. So bear with me again. This is something new I'm trying. I'd love your feedback at the end. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. We'll talk about how you add value today. I'll give you an example of what I mean, and then we'll talk about how you prepare if this is your strategy. So let's start with stepping up. If you're someone who can think strategically about the big picture, but you're right now a coordinator who orchestrates things and makes sure the meeting is executed, then you might want to advance your degree. You might want to get an advanced degree, get those CEUs, and constantly challenge yourself in your work day to day. That's kind of obvious. That's just stepping up to what you do right now. You hear that term all the time, step up. Stepping aside. If you're someone and your strengths are beyond kind of like, are the rational, so they're beyond the cognition skills and beyond the kind of day-to-day, and you want to make sure that you develop your EQ, your emotional intelligence, your artistic intelligence, You may be a meeting coordinator who has great intuition for pulling off events, and you have these great ideas. Maybe focus on those other intelligence besides just the book smarts. Stepping in. If you're someone who monitors and modifies your routine dashboards, so for example, you might be a meeting manager who's constantly looking to prove ROI, like the young lady who talks about the programs and how much money she saved. And you're interested in looking at that data and understanding it beyond what it's saying, then you might want to pursue some data analysis or statistics and research methods to better expand your domain expertise. Stepping narrowly. If you're someone who delivers program in a way most people don't, so if you do very unconventional meetings, you're someone who's super creative, you're constantly innovating your meeting product, and yes, I said product because meetings are a product. Look to narrow down in that niche, double down on what you do really well, and make that your trade, make that your practice. And then finally, stepping forward. If you're someone who drives revenue or drives impact in your organization, you might be a senior meeting manager who brings the results and perspective into other departments. You help innovate in other places. You might want to think about progressing in your own career and applying to that job available in your organization. And I say in your current organization, not another one, because research shows that even though people think that career advancement happens outside of your current organization, you actually have a higher probability of succeeding in the organization you're currently in than somewhere outside of your organization. It's a misnomer to believe that just leaving your current company will give you more opportunity. And with that, that's my contact info. That's my cell phone. I don't know what my cell phone is. Text me. I don't know. If you want this presentation, you can leave your card on this table right here. I'll send it to you later today. I'm happy to take any questions that there are before we jump out. We have a question in the back. You are. Sorry, you're not really in the back. We're kind of in the back. Sorry.
I just had a quick question about the drone issue. We were just at a national park, and they said no drones, no photographs taken by drones. Do you see any other technology that we want to happen to come in to be somewhat restricted from an outside source, another government source, or another agency of some sort?
So let me quickly address the drone thing real quick first. So the FAA just said that you have to register your drones, and that's just funny. I can't believe I was saying that. Register your drones. There's like voter registration and there's like drone registration. So I'm not, it's a great question. I don't necessarily know the answer to that. I'm assuming that some devices that we will have on our bodies at some point may cause interference with other devices, and that there may be issues with that. So maybe there will be one day you have to register your Google Glasses. I don't know, but I think that's a really important question to ask and say, hey, if that's registerable, then what else is it? And I think the real question is, what kind of risk does it pose? And if you assess the risk, you can probably address that question. I didn't answer the question really, but that's my 2 cents. Yes, do you mind yelling so I save time? Hey, Lawrence. Good, how are you?
So I actually have a question about one of your predictions for 2016. Do you want to guess which one it is? Apps. Yeah, so the question about apps going away, event apps going away in 2016. So a little background, I'm the founder of a company called Double Dutch, and we do apps. So I saw that one snap me out of my zone a little bit. So question about that. So the second prediction was that all events will have a hybrid component. Absolutely agree with that. As you see that part playing out, what do you see as the container for that hybrid component?
So, first of all, Double Dutch does way more than just apps. They do data analytics and reporting that better than anybody else. So, you're not just an app company. I think the container might still be the app. The container, so this idea that you have to download an app for 3 days is a little silly. Because I'm going to an event and I know I'm going to erase it. For those who may remember, I bought my first iPhone 16 gigs. I kept running out of space. So the bottom line is you shouldn't have to download an app for 3 days, and you want as much usage as possible. So how do we do that? I think a potential container for the app space is an event company that helps you discover meetings, as an example. So if I had an event app by Double Dutch that told me, based on my LinkedIn profile, which conferences I should check out, that also contained the app for the conference, that might be interesting. Do you have any other ideas about containers?
Yeah, no, it's a good thought. I mean, there's 2 ways you could go. You could go mobile web, so a website is easier. Just you don't have to download something and these kinds of things. But I do like the idea of a persistent app on your phone that does more things than just covers you for those 3 days. I think it's an interesting thought, and I do agree that the process for downloading for a disposable thing for 3 days feels a little broken, and maybe there's some fixes there. But yeah, I really like the predictions. Thanks a lot.
Sure, thank you. And by the way, these are not 2016 predictions. These are like 20-year out predictions. So apps are still here. In fact, the usage is rising. So I think we'll see them rising all the way, and then we'll find alternatives eventually. Awesome. Thank you for that thoughtful question. Right over here, and we have time for one more after this. So make it quick, please.
So we talked a little bit about curating content. What kind of weight would you put on the actual kind of content capture and live streaming component in addition to that curated content to kind of carry that experience beyond the meeting itself?
I feel like you haven't answered that question.
I don't.
Okay. It was so good. So if I understood the question correctly, you're saying what kind of weight will I put on the lifespan of content?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I think it depends. I think that if it's I love the fact that Arnie Sorensen this morning said, if I'm a meeting planner, I'm focusing on indispensable content. And that content can be have a short lifespan, it can be a very long lifespan. So I think you have to before you answer that question, you have to segment your audience to understand who they are, and then building content that's good for their short term, medium term, and long term. So I think it really depends, and I would have a blended approach to my content. Make sure it's quick and easy for relevant to today, but also relevant to the future.
Great, thank you.
One more question, anybody? Very good. Well, thank you so much for your great audience. Thank you so much. And if you want the free coaching, let me know.
Thank you, Dan. Great job. Just as a reminder to all the attendees, please have your badge scanned on the way out if you haven't already.